I have been looking for an excuse to do this rant for a long time, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier is finally giving me a reason to do this little expose rant. Holy shit. So a lot of people, a lot of veterans are saying that they're feeling very seen by this show. And I had done a TikTok before about Bucky's therapist, and how fucking terrible she is, and how she reminds me, let me get my wine, how she reminds me of almost every single military therapist and VA therapist that I've ever had the displeasure of having to go through. A lot of people were really shocked to hear that, and were shocked to hear that from other veterans, including me, because they were like, oh, I thought that was just Hollywood. Like, she's just giving them tough love, and it was for the sake of drama. And it very well could be, coincidence, but you know what? Marvel has been very good lately about doing their research. Like, incredibly good. Like, freakily good. And until further notice, until it is confirmed to me that it is not a coincidence, I'm gonna say that it's not a coincidence. I do believe that they definitely did their research as to how veterans are actually treated when we get out and in the military. And I have to do a whole nother rant about just adjusting to life after the military when you leave. But I want to focus on the mental health aspect of it in general, because you see Bucky's therapist, right? And she's like completely dismissive, and she's cold, and she's acting like so high and mighty and better than him because she was also in combat too. So she thinks she knows everything. She basically thinks she knows everything, and she's just using all sorts of like aggressive language, talking down to him, taking his phone, looking through his phone, all this shit, like making him feel bad, as you can probably fucking tell, and would obviously literally be anywhere but there, and obviously doesn't care about Bucky as a person. It's more about Bucky as a liability, Bucky as someone that the government has to worry about or monitor. And because and even like someone pointed out the notebook thing that Bucky keeps on complaining about, saying that like it's passive aggressive, that she keeps on clicking the notebook and opening it up and everything. And somebody pointed out, which I probably agree with, is that you got to remember that notebooks and shit like that, little things like that, that's a trigger for Bucky, because that is how he was activated to be the Winter Soldier over and over again, was by those code words in that notebook that Zemo used in Civil War, and that Hydra had been using for a long time to activate him in Civil War, and was it, I think, also Winter Soldier. But anyway, completely like not sensitive to his needs as a person, literally only seeing him as a tool. And that's what it's like when you're active duty, and that's what it's like when you're a veteran. Now, for those people, if you're one of those people that are like, well, you knew what the fuck you were getting into, I don't want to hear you complaining. First of all, fuck you and yours. And I already have a whole separate video for you, so you can go and watch that video, because we ain't gonna even get into that. But I am going to illustrate to you, I'm going to tell you exactly how my experiences have been with therapy in the Air Force. When I was going through my abusive circumstance in the Air Force, sexual assault, racist, sexual harassment rather. I had one good therapist. And then she had to leave. I had the next therapist, all she did was sit there and nod and be like, that sucks. That sucks. Well, I guess our time is up. She literally gave me absolutely nothing. I would just sit there and cry and tell her how I didn't want to wake up in the morning, how I was having depressive episodes and everything. And honestly, literally, a high schooler in the middle of their AP psychology class could have done better than this bitch. The next therapist that I had was a man. And after I had done a year's worth of work trying to convince myself that what happened to me was not my fault, that there was nothing I could have done to appease my abuser, and that, like, basically it's not my fault, which is still something that I struggle with. It's something that everybody with PTSD struggles with, like what we could have done to make it better. This motherfucker really had the nerve to say, well, don't you think there's a few things that you could have done to appease her or make her, feel less threatened by you, so that she wouldn't do those things? Basically, don't you think that maybe it's a little bit your fault? And I completely lost it. I got up and I yelled in his face, and I was like, I have done a year of work to get to this point where I'm not blaming myself anymore. I will not allow you to undo that fucking work. That is absolutely unacceptable. Which you should never have to talk to your therapist about like that, right? And so I left. But the thing is, after that, dude, I didn't go back to therapy for 5 months because I was terrified. Because every time I went to therapy, I felt worse coming out than I did going in. And I was launched into one of the biggest depressive episodes of my life, where I was not eating, sleeping, I was crying every day, like detaching from my friends and family, not talking to anybody. I was like, everybody's out to get me. Like, it was awful. And that's one of the things I learned about military mental health and veteran mental health. Their job is not to get you better. Their job is not to care for your mental health. It's to get you back to work. It's to get you out of the office as quickly as possible. So when they do medicate you, it's not usually so that you can be a better person, or so that you can, function for the sake of you being healthy, but it's usually just to sedate you to all the stress, possibly abuse that's going on around you and to you, so you can just shut up and go back to the office and do your work so they don't have to deal with you. That is the aim of mental health in the military. Straight up. And the VA seems to be exactly the same, because when you are applying to get disability from the VA, you are fighting tooth and nail to get that disability, because even though they're set up to be able to take care of you, they are also actively trying to not give you money. For example, the process for me to get disability for PTSD is very cruel, because in order for me to submit a claim for PTSD, I have to write out my entire story of what happened to me. In addition to doctor's notes, in addition to therapist notes, in addition to medical records, which should be good enough, but no. You got to write out the story. And for those of you who don't understand how terrible that is, that's literally akin to triggering yourself over again. You have to go and relive all of that shit that you spend literally every moment of your fucking life trying to forget. You have to write all that down on paper. And the last time I had to do that, it took me 3 days to write mine, because it was so triggering and so painful, and I had to take so much medication. And I am convinced they do that so that veterans do not go and try to get money from them, because they don't want to give it to you. When I got into the VA health system when I became a veteran, I finally thought I finally was able to get therapy for my PTSD. I would work extra hours at my job when I was working, before I was completely just not able to work. I would work extra hours at my job so that I could get off early every Friday, so that I could go to therapy and get intensive therapy at the VA. And every single Friday, my therapist would cancel on me. Every single Friday for 2 months. For 2 months. And I just completely gave up on the idea of therapy. This is not less than a year after leaving the service. Instead of transferring me to somebody else who could help me, no, he would just keep on canceling every single Friday, saying that he had something else to do. And then the few times that we were able to meet, he literally seemed like irritable to be there. Irritable, like he would rather be anywhere else but there. Like, and I had like, when you have PTSD, you like have difficulties. Like, I still had a little bit of a stutter, which is, obviously a little better now, but I had a little bit of a stutter, so I was a little, weird in my talking and everything, and he just was really impatient, and I just got very, very bad vibes. And so after he ghosted me for 2 months, I was like, I thought that was rock bottom for me. And then I had an appointment scheduled with my psychiatrist, the one who gives me medication. And mind you, I had worked extra hours so that I could get to this appointment. And I get there, and I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting. I check the kiosk. I can't find my shit there. And so I go to the front desk and I'm like, I'm trying to check in for an appointment with my doctor. And they look in there and they're like, oh, your appointment was canceled. Nobody told me. Nobody called me. Nobody emailed me. Nobody notified me of that, of anything. After I've been working extra hours so that I could get there to take care of my own mental health like I'm supposed to do, and nobody told me. And I remember leaving the VA, and I remember sitting outside the VA sobbing, crying for 25 minutes because I was just like, I don't matter. Wow, I don't matter. I didn't matter when I was in the armed forces, and I don't matter now. They used me up. They used up my body. They used up my soul. They used up everything that I am. That was all that I was good for. I was just an asset. And now I'm here, I'm out in this association that's supposed to take care of me because I served my country or whatever the fuck. But I don't matter here either. And I just remember having very, very dark thoughts of what's the point of being alive because of that specific visit. And then I went, eventually when I went back to that psychiatrist, I let him have a mouthful because he had a whole bunch of excuses. He was like, I wasn't feeling well. And so, I didn't have time to call you. I was like, I don't give two fucking shits. I don't give two shits about how you were feeling or not, because I was an officer in the Air Force, a black officer, a black female officer. There was no room for error for me. I don't care if I got shot in the fucking head and was still able to talk. If I didn't get back to everybody that I had meetings with that day to say, hey, I can't make it, I was shot in the head, I would probably get fucking paperwork. So I was like, I don't care how fucking bad I don't care that you were feeling under the weather. You didn't even give me the courtesy to tell me. You're not even the courtesy to tell me that, hey, I can't be there. You let me go all the way across the island of Manhattan to this place. You let me work all of these extra hours and then you just don't pay me the courtesy of telling me. And so basically I demanded that I would be doing Skype appointments because I was no longer going to put myself through this anymore. No longer. This is the reality, man. That shit is the reality of the kind of care that we go through. And it's sad. And whether you agree with the military or not that's a different video altogether. And honestly, like, I am not very I'm not very pro military myself after having gotten out. But the bottom line is that they take we feel like we are taken and we're used up. The best years of our life in our 20s, used up heart, mind, and soul. And they were cast out, and then people are just like, okay, well, just don't die. And every institution that's supposed to help us is really not interested in helping us get better. It's just either keeping us an asset and being able to squeeze as much energy and resources out of us as possible, or to just keep us away. In the case of the VA, to just keep us away. And then they have the fucking nerve when suicide rates go up every year to be like, fucking shocked Pikachu phase, why are suicide rates going up? So, and I'm sure I could remember other things if I tried, but those are some of the things that I have gone through with the VA. And thank God my last two therapists that I've had at vet centers have been fantastic. I am very grateful for them. I'm happy. But it took a year and a half from the time I left active duty to find my first therapist. To get my first therapist. That is what it's like. And so when I saw Bucky's therapist, and when a lot of us saw Bucky's therapist in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we were like, yeah, that sounds just about like every fucking motherfucker in mental health that we have ever had to fucking deal with. Ever. I believe I've even had a therapist on base when I voiced my concern for my medication Zoloft making me gain weight to the point that I was overweight. I believe what she said was, well, would you rather be a little fat and have a more stable mood, or, you know, be thinner but be a bitch because you're not taking medication? Those are the exact words that this woman said to me. That's reality. And I also have friends that have been in domestic abuse situations in the military who are going to therapy for that. And there are therapists straight up telling them that it is their fault that they ended up in that situation because they have low self-esteem. Victim blaming, straight up. This is what we have to go through. What you see Bucky going through with this bitch, even though it was literally 1 or 2 episodes, it was a very vivid look into how we are treated. And unfortunately, truth is even stranger than that fiction. So, that's some story time for you.